Goliath, level 9 upgrade. Hey guys, Tristan here, and today we'll be installing the RPM front bulkheads for the Traxxas T-Maxx and E-Maxx. Of course, I have them in black. Alright guys, so what we're going to do now is we're going to check out what's inside the packaging. Now, I gotta cut it open real quick. I am using no good scissors, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rip it open. Alright, so obviously in the packaging we have the two bulkheads for left and the right, which look really darn good. We also have hardware, stickers, more hardware, and then the instructions. To make this a whole lot easier on me, I am going to remove all 4 tires, and each one are held on with a single 8mm wheel nut. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the 4 screws that hold the front bumper on, and they are located right here next to the bulkhead. There's going to be one on top, one on bottom, and there's going to be 2 on the other side. I am also going to be removing the 2 screws on top of the rear bumper. That way I can remove the roll cage. With the screws removed, we can now take the front bumper on off. Then we're going to flip the RC on over. Then we're going to remove 10 screws. We got 4 down here holding the RPM skid plate in place. Then we got 6 up here for the bulkheads and the chassis braces. With all 10 screws removed, the skid plates can come right on off, just like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to remove the 8 arms, and that's easily done by removing the 4 pins that hold them in place. Depending on what you have, you either will have the ones where you have the Phillips or the hex screws, or you'll have the king pins with the E-clips like I do. All you just gotta do is remove them, and then you're good to go. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to remove both drive shafts, and that's easily done by peering down this little groove in the bulkhead until you can see the top of the grub screw. And you're going to take a 2.0 screwdriver, peer down there, and then unscrew it. With the grub screws removed, you can remove the drive shafts from the front differential. Now what we're going to do is we're going to remove the shock tower, which is held on with the 4 screws. With all the suspension parts removed, we can now take it, pull it back over the chassis so it's out of the way, and then we're going to move this, push it up, and we're going to move all this wiring so we can get at the 4 screws that hold the 2 bulkheads in place. There's 2 in each of them at the very front of the chassis. With the 4 screws removed, the front bulkheads along with the front differential will come right on off, and the drive shaft will just slide in half. So now what we're going to do is we're going to remove the bulkheads easily by sliding them off. Now when you're doing this, you want to make sure you keep this in the correct orientation. If you later accidentally put this upside down like this, your tires are going to run backwards. So just remember, just keep this in the proper orientation. Now that we have the bulkheads, we can now compare them to the new ones, which is, as you guys can see, they don't look all that different. From just observations, it looks like they got rid of this little X pattern support over here on this side. It looks like they beefed up the shock tower area just a tad bit more, and they beefed up over here in the front where the chassis connects. On the other side, as you guys can see, they actually made this section that's all X'd out with support. They filled that completely on this side, so it's completely flat. They've also done the same up here with the shock tower, as well as it's, like I said, it's still got the beefed up in the front. So with all those, it's still made out of the RPM nice nylon plastics, which makes it a lot durable and a lot more flexible, which is what's going to keep this thing intact. Whereas this is, well, it's made out of the Traxxas plastics, which we all know cannot always be the best. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to reassemble Before reassembling, what we're going to do is we're going to take both of the new bulkheads and we're going to take some of the nuts that they provide us with. We're going to insert them flat end down into the little grooves where the chassis connects. There's one, and then there's two, and we're going to do them with both of them. Now that everything's taken apart, we can now start on reassembling this with the new RPM bulkheads. So first what we're going to do is we're going to take this front diff with it in the correct position, and then start inserting both the left and the right bulkheads. Which is easily done just by sliding them in place. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to insert it just right as like before. Just got to make sure you're lining up the drive shafts correctly. With both halves of the drive shaft connected, we can now push it up against the chassis. Now to secure it to the chassis, RPM has supplied us with 3 different types of screws. We have the M322, the M320, and the M316s. So, the M320s are used on a E-Maxx. So, these 4 I will not need. But the M3x16s are the ones I'm going to be using to secure the bulkhead to the chassis. And they go right up here in the front where these 4 screws go. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to take the shock tower, pull it on right over the bulkhead just like that, and then what we're going to do is we're going to screw in the 4 screws that hold it in place. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to take the A-arms, both top and bottom, and we're going to insert them into their respective positions. The tolerance on the plastic should be enough just to get them to hold still while you take the pins and slide them into place. Now for the top ones, they're going to be slightly longer than the bottom ones, so just remember that. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to reinstall the drive shafts. All we got to do is take them, grab the yoke, and slide it onto the output shaft of the front diff. After that, we can just adjust the right length, take our grub screw, and drop it down in. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to take the skid plate and we're just going to lie it down where it fits, and then we're going to screw in the 6 screws that hold it to the chassis brace as well as the bell crank posts. Next up is the fun part. So I'm going to take the RPM skid plate that I have, I'm going to slide it over just like that, and I'm going to take the screw that they provided me with, I'm going to slide it down the hole just like that. I'm going to take one of the nuts that they also supplied me with, and I'm going to just use my finger to try and get it up there. This is very, very difficult to do. Come on, there we go. I'm going to hold it with my finger while I come up here with my 2.0 and screw the screw down. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to be installing the front bumper finally. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bulkhead brace, I'm going to slide it down in position just like that. I'm also going to take my roll cage and slide it up into position as well, and as you guys can see, I did finally get one of the 2 rods in place, so it looks a lot better now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the bumper, slide that in position, and I'm going to take the 4 screws that hold it on. There's going to be 2 on this side and 2 on the other side. And now all that's left is to take the tire, put it onto the drive shaft just like that, and then screw in the 8mm nut that holds it in place. Here is before, and here is after, guys. Check it out, and as you guys can see, it looks pretty darn good down there. Now, with it being an RPM, I don't really have to worry about it all too much, because we all know how RPM with their really, really nice plastics and all that fun stuff, yeah, I don't have to worry about that anymore. I do need to get a new shock tower, because if you look down there, it is cracked. I found that out a long time ago. Well, not a long time ago, about a month ago I realized it, but I still haven't replaced it. Probably just going to run it till it breaks and then get an RPM one to replace it. That's probably my goal for that one. But yeah, guys, so about this RPM front bulkhead, I gotta say, putting it together, not all that difficult. The biggest pain in the butt, though, is down here where you're putting in the screw through the skid plate into the bulkhead itself and putting this little nut here in place. That is a bastard to put in. Having to put 4 of them in, putting them in the backs of the A-arms, oh, trying to get past the turnbuckles and all that fun stuff. It was just not fun. So ease of use, it's just not there. Those are a pain. But other than that, guys, I so far love the look of these bulkheads, and I cannot wait to test them out. Unfortunately, I got a storm brewing in today, so I won't be able to run him just yet. And that was Goliath's level 9 upgrade.